So, for example, I represent a town that only has 1,700 people and has, I believe they only have 5 employees total. Their entire budget, including schools, is around $6 million. Now, there are towns in this state that have housing commissions that have budgets way more than that, multiples of that. But in my towns, they're simple, like, who's going to build this housing? It's not because there's zoning restrictions. It's because we live in a very rural farming community that with no water, no sewer, barely any internet, electric goes out a dozen times a year. It just isn't possible for a town like that to build low-income housing. And to have a system where a town is rated or judged on any scale as to how many low-income houses they are able to build is simply unacceptable to me, and simply not workable in many of the small towns in this state. So for that reason, I oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative, and I will take the opportunity to briefly disabuse you of the notion. In my capacity as Chair of Planning and Development the last year or so, I really listened to people like yourself from across the state, because I think what we have consistently heard is that what works in Greenwich doesn't work in Avon, what works in Avon doesn't work in Plymouth, what works in Plymouth doesn't work in Hartford. And so I will tell you that this represents an ongoing conversation and also an opportunity for all of us to have input into what we're calling a housing menu, to provide opportunities for people to say, you know what, this doesn't work in my town, but these other two pieces might. It does not just represent affordable housing, it represents senior housing, it represents housing for workforce development. So I think that when we get the draft out, I hope that you will come to me with feedback, because that's what I'm really truly looking for in this process. And that's from all of my colleagues and from other outside groups as well, because I think that the best way we can craft legislation, because we know we have to build more housing of all types, affordable housing being, certainly at the top of the list for a lot of people. I think that it's critical that we have these ongoing conversations, because when we stop talking about it, our state stops moving forward. So, so I do hope you will, once you see it, help provide feedback, and I hope we have a really productive public hearing when we do hear it. So I thank you so much for your comments.
I thank you for that, Madam Chair.